So one of the things that you said today, and it's really divided, to put it mildly, a lot of people, and a lot of viewers have already been in touch with me saying, when Dr. David Bull comes on, can you put this to him? One of the things that you said earlier on was that you said, and I quote, immigration is the lifeblood of this country. It always has been. That was your direct quote. The subject of immigration, it's a very, very feisty, emotive, passionate subject for so many people, and it's one, of course, that divides the nation. Many people, and I mean, I've got Robert Jenrick, a tweet from Robert Jenrick, he's saying that what you've said is absolute nonsense, basically, that immigration is not essentially the lifeblood of the country. It won't surprise you to know that you've got people like Rupert Lowe completely disagreeing, Ben Habib, all of those people.
But let's be very clear, what I meant by that was controlled immigration.
I mean, I think, right, I'm going to take off my political partisan hat and I'm going to put on my sober political analysis hat for a moment here and go, I think that this is the exact line that Reform UK need to take if they want to be politically successful, because they can't look like a single issue migrant bashing party, otherwise they'll only have a certain area of support. If they want to maximise their reach, if they want to expand the potential cohort of people who might want to vote for them, being seen to say what Nigel Farage said in the run-up to the election of immigration was fine when it was Windrush and when it was a smaller amount filling Labour gaps in the 70s and 80s, it only became a problem in the mass immigration era of Blair and Cameron and onwards, right? Then you can have plausible deniability about the anti-migrant credentials of the party to a wider electorate, when of course they know full well that the anti-migrant headbangers have no one else to vote for, so they can pander to, like, One Nation Tories by taking this more kind of liberal but concerned line of immigration, even if they don't really fundamentally believe it. So I think, tactically, I think this makes a lot of sense for Reform UK.
Into this country. We are an island of immigrants, so we need to be mindful of that. We need to attract the best and the brightest into this country, but we also need to look after people in this country first and foremost, and we're not doing that. We have had mass uncontrolled migration into this country. We've seen the absolute shambles of the boats coming across with the government doing nothing about it. So I was trying to make a point about actually controlled migration is important, and we need to make sure that we continue with that. But right now, what we need to do is to tackle this unfettered immigration and the arrival on the small boats.
I mean, that's exactly the line that's going to, I think, sway the public a lot. I think there is a big cohort of the public who are angry about the small boats, even though they don't understand that it's perfectly reasonable to arrive via irregular means to claim asylum, because you're unlikely to have documentation if you're fleeing the Taliban, for example, and they're projected to do so by the Refugee Convention is a deliberate tactic to describe it as illegal migration when it is perfectly protected by the Refugee Convention to do it. But they are angry with that, but they fundamentally believe that migration is good in certain sectors, depending on who it is, depending on what they're going to do to the labour market, and if they're going to contribute, but not too many, right? Most people have this kind of middle ground view of immigration where it's okay up to a point, but we've had too much recently, but we really, really hate the irregular migration, or in their terms illegal, even though it is not illegal to arrive via irregular means, as long as you claim asylum. So this all makes sense as a political position to try and win over this kind of median voter.
Curtis, your thoughts on Reform UK?
Well, I was going to say the two main parties are in a lot of trouble. I think this is a seismic moment in politics where, go back 100 years, the Liberals the Labour Party overtook the Liberals. That was a seismic political shift. I think the same thing is happening. I mean, it's crazy to me that it's not even been a year in a Labour government, and look how unpopular they are. Now, my argument is they wouldn't particularly popular to begin with. I've always said that in the general election, the Labour Party didn't win, the Conservative Party lost. I think there's a broad consensus of that. And I think Reform are definitely capturing the anger people have, because people are looking at the status quo and feel like the Tories aren't delivering and the Labour Party aren't delivering. What is very interesting is when you do speak to people, we went down to Runcorn, actually, where obviously you won the by-election, very tight, by the way, and people were saying things, of course, immigration came up on the doorstep, because I accept that, you know, my politics in terms of immigration, majority of people disagree with me, OK? I don't like it, but I accept that. A lot of people were also talking about left-wing economic policies. People want to see the two-child benefits scrapped, the cap scrapped even.
Well, that is your policy.
That's our policy.
Exactly. People were angry. People were angry at, like, benefits being slashed. And actually, this might, to maybe pundits in the mainstream media, they might not realise this, but there's actually quite a big crossover between the Greens and Reform. I know, it might surprise you. I've spoken to a lot of people who are like, I might go for the Greens, I might go for the Reform.
Apart from net zero, of course.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot of policy difference between this.
I mean, the thing is, most people support net zero. Most people support climate action. Most people want to see a more environmentalist political position. It's one of the big disagreements between voters and Reform UK. They're trying to manufacture consent for anti-net zero policies, despite it not being popular already. And as a party that has triangulated voters on so many issues, you wonder why they aren't triangulating on this issue when it's clear that the majoritarian median position is to support climate action. Well, of course, all you have to do is look at their donors, all you have to look is at their supporters and the kind of people who are in bed with the people at the top of the party. And of course, it's people in the petrochemical industry who stand to gain if we reverse course on divesting from fossil fuels, right? But the main point that Curtis is making here is that it's not necessarily about the ideological prescriptions of the parties. It's that they're seen as people outside of the mainstream. They're seen as iconoclastic and outsiders of Westminster.
Let me ask you about net zero, actually, because Richard Hayes, he will call it net stupid zero. He comes on my show often. But where I'm from, Hull, you've got a Mayor, Luke Campbell.
Yes.
He was elected Reform UK. Of course, we're on the River Humber. And the green energy, the solar energy, for example, that is a big deal. You've got companies like Siemens and Broader. He seems to actually be supportive of net zero.
Who does, Luke?
How does that work then?
Well, let's look at the facts here. So the government has just agreed to Sizewell C, which is about 25 years too late. We should have done it a lot earlier to have that base load. I'm a great proponent of nuclear power. But in terms of wind and solar, fine, but it's intermittent, isn't it? And actually it doesn't actually achieve the energy that we need in this country.
I mean, it's just not true. It's just not true. Right, you look at Australia, where they also have a nuclear power ban. People are saying that the Greens wanting to ban nuclear made them unserious when the Australian Labour Party ruled out ending the nuclear power ban in Australia so that they could go for full net zero through wind and solar, right? It looks like they're going to be fine with that energy mix. I don't see why that would be any different from here. Of course, we have more people to generate electricity from, but we've just got to scale up the level to which that we do that investment. So this just isn't true. You absolutely can run an economy on full solar and wind and things like geothermal and tidal. I personally think that we should have some nuclear because it uses a lot less land in a very nature-depleted country, right? So we can have a little split of some nuclear baseload capacity, but broadly mostly using solar and wind, right? But the idea that, just what happens if the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine? I'm like, that's what pumped storage hydroelectricity is for. That's what batteries are for.
And also the subsidies for solar and for net zero means that we have the highest energy prices in the Western world, and that is crippling households, it's crippling businesses, and also just going back to your point on the Labour government, which is they've pretty much attacked everyone, whether you run a small business, an SME, the employer's national insurance contributions. You've got people running pubs and bars and restaurants who can't afford to employ anyone. Then you attack the farmers, and that's because people in the Labour Party have never been into the countryside. I live in the countryside, and so the farmers are absolutely desperate. And if we don't have food security in this country...
The farmers, it's only about inheritance, right? I'm sure a dead farmer, God rest their soul, is really going to miss the money that they don't need anymore because they're now, unfortunately, not with this world anymore. Like, this is not going to affect their overall rate of profit. In fact, it's going to make their rate of profit on capital much better because the value of the farmland is going to go down because it's not used as an inheritance tax dodge anymore. Solar panels use UV light, not heat, and in fact they work more efficiently in winter than summer because the panels end up reflecting light on a hot day. That's true, right? We had to turn on a coal power station in 2023 because it was so hot during a heat wave that the efficiency of the solar panels was really low because of how hot they were, right? What you want is a clear, cold day to maximize the efficiency of photovoltaic cells.
Country, then we're in big trouble. So it's about food security, energy security, and also probably, just to go back to the dichotomy that you face, possibly, of coming over, which is...
Blimey, he's using it as some kind of recruitment tool now. Goodness gracious me. Hurry up, make your final point. He's trying to get you over.
Well, I think what we're trying to do is to have common sense policies which everyone around the country, people at home, are thinking, yes, I like that. That's what we want someone to stand for. And I think the tribalism of left and right probably is over. And that's why I agree. I think it's pivotal.
Very quickly, someone's got in touch and said, can you put to him, there's a suggestion that some of your ideas coming out of fantasy economics. What would you say back to that?
Well, so obviously before the election it will be fully costed. Nigel has made it very clear how he will make some of those savings.
But why wasn't it fully costed at the last election? In the last election, it was crackpot crazy stuff. That is what is still the policy prescription on the website. And it's gigantic, sterling crisis levels of economic illiteracy. Especially as it's just tax cuts for rich people like Liz Trusted, rather than targeted actual investment into productive capacity and supply-side investment, which you could be engaging in expansionary policy for and are not doing.
We talked about net zero. We've also got this Dodge unit. By the way, the stuff we've uncovered already is quite significant. But obviously it will be fully costed when we come to the next election.
And if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.